Hey, greetings! Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me today. Father, please be with us today. These are difficult things that we've been talking about these last few weeks, especially in the context of the milieu that we have grown up in. We've learned so many lies, worthless and unprofitable things. Please, Father, be with us. Open our eyes, open our hearts, open our minds to hear the things that you have for us. Last week, we talked about three things. We talked about the manna. We talked about the striking of the rock at Horeb, which really was in Rephidim, and the attack by the Amalekites in Rephidim. Always surprises me, all those things, that attack came in Rephidim. I didn't realize that. Today, we're going to see Jethro, come back to Moses with his woman and his two sons. I just realized he didn't have to come far at all. That was in his backyard. Remember, Moses was keeping the sheep of Reuel when one wandered off and he found it in the mountain, the burning bush. Talk to Yehovah on Mount Sinai, which we're going to go to today. Whose were? That's the question. But let's talk about the feeding of Israel and their congregation and their families and their servants for just a moment. We saw that the congregation of Israel's seed was the Ger and the Ezra. But the Ger and the Ezra have families. Remember, we talked about the mixed multitude, which really was the mixed heads of families. We're talking about men. Men. Oh my goodness, we've got to understand this, you guys. We saw that it was Israel's seed who collected the manna in the wilderness. Those are the Ezra men. It was not the Ger who collected it. It was not the ladies who collected it. There was no children collecting manna. We collected it, Israel's seed, the Ezra man, the second-born man, the spiritually born man, collected it for all who were within our tents. Remember, we have in tents, use that general speaking, because probably the Ger are going to have tents also, but it's not, they're still within our, they're within our gates. The Ger who dwells with us, Yehovah speaks of often. These are the people who partook of the Passover before we left Egypt and then became the Ezra. But when we left, the new Ezra and the old Ezra, the heads, the mixed heads of families went with us. We're collecting the manna for them. We're collecting the manna for our women, our children, and our servants. We saw, he said, every man had gathered according to each one's needs. We saw this man everywhere. Here, let me go up a couple more verses. This is the thing which Yehovah has commanded. Let every man gather it according to each one's needs. 1 omer for each person according to the number of persons. Nafesh, let each man take for those who are in his tent. You see who's collecting the manna? So they gathered it every morning, every man according to his needs. When the sun became hot, it melted. Well, we saw then it was all the men who were gathering this. They gathered twice as much on the 6th day. Some were disobedient and went out on the 7th day, even though they were supposed to stay in their tents. And We collected it for 40 years. When we came out of Egypt, it stopped. And this should be it. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land's produce. And Israel's seed no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan. They ate the food of Canaan's land that year. Yes. As they took it for themselves. This was the Canaanites' food, but we were destroying them and taking their food. The first year was the year that we ate their food. Will it happen again? I think it will. All right. The next chapter was our journey. We went, then all the congregation of Israel's seed set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin. That's where we got the manna, according to the command of Yehovah, and camped at Rephidim. Now, I color-coded this last week so you could see it. We're talking about Israel's seed. They are the people. We're going to see it today. It's going to be very clear. But you know what? Because of the things that we've learned, because we think in terms of the children of Israel, and we think it includes women and children and all this, we lose sight of the truth. We can't see it. It's not available to us until we can arrange our mind so we can open our eyes and see what's going on. I'm going to try very hard to make it as clear as I can today for you. It's essential that we learn who Israel's seed is. You know, sometimes it's hard to see. Well, the first thing we did was we were thirsty. Look what happened. So Moses cried out to Yehovah, saying, "What shall I do, this people, Israel's seed? They are almost ready to stone me." Remember, we said ladies don't stone men. Israel's seed stones men. And Yehovah said to Moses, "Go before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand your rod." What rod are we talking about? This is the rod of the Elohim. The Elohim's rod. You know what? We see it twice in this chapter. Once here, when he strikes it with the rock. "And you shall strike the rock, and the water shall come out of it, and that the people may drink." He struck the rock. Did it split in half when he struck it? I wonder. Wouldn't that have been impressive? But he did it in front of all the elders of Israel. It did it in the sight of the elders of Israel, yeah. Well, didn't even talk about how much water. We didn't know anything about it. In fact, Yasher doesn't even talk about this episode in the life of Israel. The striking of the rock. I'm really surprised that they did it. You know, this rock, I believe, is very, very important. Moses had his rod, and he was told to strike the rock, which he did. The water came out. But the next time that they're thirsty, 40 years later, Moses is told to speak to the rock and not hit it. But he hits it twice. Because of that, Yehovah kept him out of the promised land. Boy, that's pretty severe, don't you think? Was there a shadow picture that was being set up for future events? I think there was. We're going to see that Israel's seed, remember we talked about them last week, Isaiah 11. They shall, I'm going to go to it. Let's go there. I don't mind taking, this is important stuff. We've got to get this stuff. Isaiah 11. Here it is. There shall come forth a rod. This is a rod of discipline from the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots. A spirit of Yehovah. Well, here's what I wanted you to see. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. These servants are the branch, Yehovah's branch, his male child, who will strike the earth with their mouth. They don't have enough rods to go around. But we are functioning in the same role that Moses is functioning in each of our separate locations. They're the watchmen. When Yehovah raises up Zion, his watchmen will all see eye to eye. They're the good shepherds of Jeremiah 23, who will feed their flocks differently than the bad shepherds did, the ones who drove them away. Let's go back. The rock at Horeb. The next thing we're going to see is, and again, they don't even get to drink it. Here is Amalek coming after them, the Amalekites. To destroy them came with, I think it said 801,000 men. Remember, we have 600,000 men, plus the mixed heads of families. Yeah, we have servants. Can probably be added to that tally. But we're going to fight. Yehovah told Joshua to select some men. What did he select? Enoshim, men, men, men. And he took the rod of the Elohim's rod, in hand, and raised it on the mountain above his head. And every time that rod went up, we won. Every time Moses got tired and dropped it, we lost. And so it worked out. They set Moses on a rock, and Aaron and Hur held it over his head. All he had to do is hang on to it, and we won the battle. But I think it's interesting that this rod takes such an important role, and I know it says here, take the rod. Look what it says. Take in your hand your rod, which you struck the river. This is the river that we're talking about. Is this the river in Egypt? I think not. I think he's talking about the Red Sea. They're both the same rod. I guess it doesn't matter. This rod plays an important role, and it's going to play more roles in the future. We've got to understand that this rod came from the Melchizedeks. Remember, we saw it came from Canaan, Enoch, Methuselah, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. It was passed down, though it wasn't used, by Joshua. And it came into the hands of a man we're going to see in the very next chapter. His name is Raul. Raul. Ooh, this is an interesting guy. They call him the priest, Midian's priest, and Jethro. Midian's priest. They're calling him Jethro here. It goes back and forth. Midian's priest, Moses' father-in-law, heard of all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel. Who's Israel? His people. Hear that? Israel is the Ezra men. What does he say? Let my son, my firstborn, Israel, go, or I will kill your sons. We saw last week he killed all his sons. And Israel did go. But they went, who? With who? With their women and their children and the Ger who dwell with them. but it's about the men. We gotta get this. Please, you've got to understand this. They are his people. The woman becomes his people by becoming one with her man. We're going to see this over and over and over again. Please watch for it. This simply says in Yasher, the children of Israel proceeded from children of Israel, Israel's seed proceeded from Rephidim, and they encamped in the wilderness of Sinai in the 3rd month from their going down to Egypt. At that time came Reuel, the Midianites, the father-in-law of Moses, and Zipporah, his daughter. Wilderness of Sinai. Oh, we haven't even got there yet. I guess I'm really giving this to you a little soon because we're still well, 18 and 19. They're going to go together in the 3rd month. Yeah. In a sense, 19 almost comes before 13. And 19 comes before 18. We'll see it. It appears that Reuel and the chapter 19 events are happening simultaneously. Maybe. But here is Jethro. This is all about Jethro, Reuel. He's got several names. Actually, he's got a 3rd name also. I forget what the 3rd name is. We'll see it later on. Let me do this. A-T-H. Jethro, Reuel, and Hobab. There's Hobab. Did you know he had a name, Hobab? Here, Heber, the Kenite of Israel, of Hobab's seed, the father-in-law of Moses. How about Hobab? Three names. Don't see that very often. Heard of all that Elohim had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, that Yehovah had brought Israel out of Egypt. Glory! Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, there he says it again, Moses' father-in-law took Zipporah, Moses' woman, after he had sent her back, with her 2 sons, of whom the name of one was Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. How old are these boys? Do you remember? It was 4 years, max, before we came out of Egypt that Moses was let out of prison, found the staff, plucked it from Jethro's garden. Oh, if you haven't heard those stories, you got to hear those stories. And then married Zipporah. First son was Gershom. Here it is. For he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Eliezer. For he said, the Elohim of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. The first son was not circumcised. It was Jethro who told Moses not to circumcise his son. Almost got Moses killed and his son on his way to Egypt to free Israel's seed. Can you imagine? Let's talk about Jethro for a moment. He calls him a priest of Midian. Midian's priest. Is he a priest? Do you remember the first time that we saw Reuel? In fact, he was called Reuel at the beginning of the spot that we're going to talk about, and Jethro at the end of it. Oh, interesting. Is there a difference between those 2 names? I don't know. I'm not sure how to do with that. Calls him a priest of Midian. You know what? He knew the history of Israel's seed because it was Balaam, after the king of Egypt, Melal, had a dream saying that, I forget exactly what the dream was, but the idea was that something is rising up that's going to destroy him and Israel and Egypt. Balaam, kind of a sharp cookie sometimes, wicked as all get out, knew it had to do with Israel, somebody rising in Israel. And he suggested that Pharaoh talk with Raul, his counselor, and Job, his counselor. Let's take a look for it. Let me ask you this, though. We're still talking about priest, prince. Is he a prince? Can this word, Kohen, be used as a chief? Midian could have a chief. Maybe he's a chief in Midian. He has no sons, only daughters. Is he a priest? If he's a priest, how come he didn't want to get him circumcised? How old is this man? Let's talk about this for a second. I want you to hear this. This is what it said in Yasher 67, right here. And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Raul the Midianite. This is our Raul. And Job the Uzite from the land of Uz. And they came and sat before the king. He gave a great discourse. It was Raul who spoke first. Remember what happened to Jacob. Remember what happened to Abraham. Remember what happened to Isaac. Every time people try to do something to them, they end up in trouble. He said, leave him alone or let him go. Not what Melel wanted to hear. Here's what it says at the end of his discourse. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, look at, he was Raul at the beginning, he's Jethro then. He was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. He is a counselor for the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. How old is he? It's really important, because this is before Moses is even born. The whole dream is about Moses rising up, being born, a deliverer. Just before this dream, we saw Miriam having a prophecy, where she's like 4 or 5 years old at the most, probably 4. That my mother and my father are going to have a son. My father and my mother are going to have a son, and he will deliver Egypt from the hands of Pharaoh. How old is Raul? Moses right now is 80 years old. Raul has got to be 80 plus, whatever he is right now when he's talking to Pharaoh. Was he 20? Was he 30? Was he 40 at that time? Wasn't married yet, it doesn't appear. He's going to have all these daughters afterwards. How old is Zipporah? We don't know. Ooh, wouldn't it be fun to know some of those things? But if he's 20, that means that Raul right now is 100. If he's 40, that means right now Raul is 120. If he was 40 when he was a counselor for Pharaoh. Remember, it was Raul who told Moses not to circumcise his son. Is he a priest? Or is he a man? Remember, as a Midianite, he is from the line of Abraham through Keturah. He knows the history of the Hebrews. They're his forefathers. But is he a priest? You know what? I have a problem with that. I just don't see him as the priest man. And I'll show you some more things here today that I think adds to that argument. All right, let's continue on. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' woman, after he had sent her back, and her sons, of whom the name of one was Gershom. I guess I got through that. Gershom, for he said, I've been a stranger in a foreign land. And the name of the other was Eleazar, for he said, Elohim, the Elohim of my father, was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. Now, it says, and Joshua and Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, is this like the third time that they've said Moses' father-in-law, Moses' father-in-law, Moses' father-in-law? Do you think he's trying to make a point? Came with his sons and his woman to Moses in the wilderness, where he had encamped at the mountain of Elohim. You know what? Torah does not make this clear. We think that he's still in the same place, Rephidim, where the rock at Horeb was hit, because we haven't seen him move. He hasn't moved. Did he move before the end of this? I don't think so. No. But we're going to see that Rephidim and the wilderness of Sinai before the mountain of Elohim, the mountain of the Elohim, are two different places. She is coming to Israel's seed, who is camped before the mountain. And he's going to send her back. Only the two boys and Raul are going to stay. Because we're going to see today that there shall be no women. You shall not go near a woman for 3 days. He's getting ready to give Israel's seeds the commandments. Yes. The ladies didn't get it. The ladies didn't get it. The servants didn't get it. The ger didn't get it. Israel's seed got it. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his women to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the Elohim's mountain. Elohim's mountain. The first time that he talked to the Elohim, Yehovah, told him this. So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve the Elohim on this mountain. Serve the Elohim on this mountain. That's what we're required to do. Serve the Elohim of the mountain. No, he's not on the mountain anymore, but he's still the Elohim. Moses brought him to the mountain, just as he said he would do. He'd bring the people. Who are the people? Israel's seed, the Ezra men. Here it says, this is Yasher. We'll get to it today, I hope. We should. And Raul came to Moses in the wilderness where he was encamped, where was the mountain of the Elohim. And Moses went forth to meet his father-in-law with great honor, and all Israel was with him. And Raul and his sons, look what it says, Raul and his sons remained amongst the Israelites for many days. Zipporah wasn't allowed to stay. Why? We're going to find out today. And Raul knew Yehovah from that day forward. Here's the priest of Midian's priest, let's call Midian's priest. It says he knew Yehovah from that day forward. That day forward. He didn't know him before that. Is he a priest or is he a prince of Midian? Here's a man that locked Moses in jail, left him to die for 10 years. It was only because Zipporah fed him secretly that he even lived. Here's the man, the only man who was able to pluck the rod of Elohim, no, the Elohim's rod, out of his garden. Do you think that maybe Raul should be taking a hint? Apparently he knew the rod of Elohim was important. Was he a priest? Was he a prince? I guess it really doesn't matter, does it? He gave some good advice. Doesn't really change much. He knew Yehovah from that day forward. And in the third day from Israel's seed's departure from Egypt, in the third month from Israel's seed's departure from Egypt, on the 6th day thereof, Yehovah gave Israel the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Now we're going to see today that it appears that the commandments were given on the 3rd day in Torah and on the 6th day in Yasher. Which is right? I don't know. I tend to think the 6th day. I don't know. Let's continue. Now he said to Moses, I, your father-in-law, Jethro, this is the 4th time that we're talking about this, am coming to you with your woman and her 2 sons with her. This appears to me to be a messenger who is maybe a guard, who is bringing a message from Raul, Jethro in this case, to Moses. They're outside the tent, bringing the message in. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other about their well-being and went into the tent. Did he not kiss Zipporah? Was he not glad to see Zipporah? It doesn't say anything. But this must be a message that came from her God, from a guard. Listen, they called her 2 sons. This says her sons. Her sons is the word that they're using here. Up here it said his sons. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other about their well-being. And they went into the tents. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Yehovah had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake. Who's Israel? My son, my firstborn is Israel. Oh, here it is. My son, my firstborn is Israel. And Moses told his father-in-law all that Yehovah had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that had come upon them on the way, and how Yehovah had delivered them. Then Jethro rejoiced for all the good which Yehovah had done for Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hands of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be Yehovah, glory, who has delivered you out of the hands of the Egyptians, out of the hands of Pharaoh, and who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. The people is Israel. He says, now I know for sure that Yehovah is greater than all the Elohims. Yehovah is greater than all the Elohims. The definite article is there in this particular circumstance. We're talking about the rulers, the lawmakers, and the rulers of Egypt. These are the gods. Pharaoh and all the people who ruled over Israel's seed. Jethro, Raul, knows firsthand how wicked these rulers and judges are. Remember, we saw it. He was a counselor to Pharaoh. He knows how powerful they are. I'm sure when Moses told him he was going down to Egypt to deliver Israel's seed, that Jethro said, yeah, good luck with that. But now he knows that Yehovah is greater than all the Elohim of Egypt. For in the very thing that in which they behaved proudly. Are we talking about idols? Are we talking about gods? The sun god? No, we're talking about men. For in the very thing that they behaved proudly, he was above them. You know, this is the problem we have between the first commandment and the second commandment. You shall have no other Elohim but me. We don't understand what an Elohim is. We think it has to do with the gods. Because of this word God that we use. This is why I don't use the word God hardly ever. The second commandment is about the idols, graven images. I don't think we're going to get to it today. I'm already slow. But we will talk about it next week. We'll go through the 10 Commandments next week. Now I know that Yehovah is greater than all the Elohim of Egypt. My words. For in the very thing in which they behaved proudly, he was above them. It calls him Elohim of the Elohim. Yehovah is Elohim of the Elohim of the world. Then Jethro, Moses and father-in-law, my gosh, there's 5 times, took burnt offerings and other slaughters to offer to Elohim. Slaughters. Let me show you this word. We don't get it. It gets translated. This word always gets translated as sacrifices. A zavik is the word that we're looking for. Here it is right down here. A zavik is a slaughter. It's something that we will eat. The Passover is a slaughter. The Shalomim is a slaughter. We kill it and we eat it before Yehovah. Or we can even eat it we can bring it back to our tents. The whole family can eat it. Everyone is clean within a given period of time. Here he is. Burnt offerings. Remember, burnt offerings is an animal that is consumed wholly. There's nothing left. Yeah, there might be skin left. It can save the skin. But everything else is burnt up. And other slaughters to Elohim. They put to offer other slaughters to Elohim. And Aaron came with the elders of Israel to eat bread, to eat lechem. Here's the word, lechem. Food. Gets translated as bread, usually gets translated as leavened bread. But it's food. To eat food with Moses. With Moses' father-in-law before Elohim. The food that he was slaughtering to Elohim is the same food that the elders of Israel and Moses and Aaron are going to eat. Would you like to know how many elders there were? These elders are constantly brought forth. The elders of Israel, they came before him at the rock at Horeb. They're the witnesses. They want to make sure they see it so they can tell all the people in their tribes. I wonder if there's 13, 14, 13, 12, 13. Remember, we've got an extra tribe member now because Joseph gets turned into Ephraim and Manasseh, the two sons that were adopted. As Reuben is his son, so shall Ephraim and Manasseh be my sons, is what Jacob said. Let's continue. And so it was on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people. Which people are we talking about? We're talking about men people. And the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. So when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, "What is this thing that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you from morning until evening?" You know what? Raul has some good wisdom. Maybe there's a reason he was a counselor to Pharaoh. Sharp man. Remember that Jethro is at least 20 years Moses' senior. And Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of Yehovah. When they have difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another. And I make known the statutes of the Elohim and his laws." So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing which you do is not good. Both you and these people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out." Yeah, they're waiting all day to talk to Moses. "For this thing is too much for you. You are not able to perform it by yourself." Good thinking, Raul. Jethro understands that Moses could not fulfill his calling without help. Remember, we have 600,000 men, Israelites, with us here in the wilderness, plus the mixed multitude, the mixed heads of families. He says, "Listen now to my voice, and I will give you counsel. And Elohim," this just says Elohim, not the Elohim, "and Elohim will be with you. Stand before the Elohim for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to the Elohim." I really like seeing these definite articles in here. "You shall teach them the statutes and the laws, and show them the way which they must walk, and the work they must do." We're going to teach the people. This is not about judging for the people. This is about teaching the people so they can do it. That's the goal of every teacher, is to teach men to be able to see for themselves. He continues, "Moreover, you shall select from all the people able men." Able men. What is the word able here? Here it is. Enoshi, the people. Men. Emet. Stable, trustworthy men. Men of good sense. Such as fear Elohim, men of truth, hating covetousness. It can't be bribed. And place such over them to be rulers of thousands. That means we're going to have 600 of them, rulers of thousands, 600 of them. Rulers of hundreds. How many is that? 6,000 rulers over hundreds. And rulers over 50s, going to be twice as many, 12,000 of them. And rulers over 10s. Rulers over 10s, 600,000. That's 60,000. 60,000 rulers of tents. We're talking about a lot of men, aren't we? And let them judge the people at all times. He's kind of building a chain of command. One reporting to the other, almost kind of like the justice system is supposed to work in our land, where we have lower courts, higher courts, and still higher courts, don't we? That's how it's supposed to work. Doesn't work because of the corruption and the inequity and the unrighteousness of our court systems. Jethro realizes that speedy justice is instrumental to keeping peace, contentment, and order among the people. Therefore, it is expedient to appoint numerous judges. How many judges were we talking about? This is a lot of judges, probably 100,000 judges. We're talking about a lot of judges. Therefore, it is expedient to appoint numerous judges to hear the small disputes and allow Moses to dedicate himself to seeking the will of the Redeemer. These are the higher authorities that Paul talks about in Romans 13, 1 through 7. We're not talking about the world's lawmakers and judges. The Romans were coming to the synagogue, those appointed for Israel's seed, to learn Yehovah's word, to help them judge them when disputes arose. They are the higher authorities. Right now, Moses is appointing higher authorities. Higher authorities, higher authorities, higher authorities, higher authorities, and then him. And let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter that they bring to you, but every small matter they themselves shall judge. So it will be easier for you, for they will bear the burden for you. If you do this thing, and Elohim commands you, here's Raul saying that Elohim is commanding Moses to do something. That's interesting. If you do this thing, and Elohim commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all the people will also go to their place in peace. They aren't going to have to sit around all day. They're going to get their item taken care of and get back to work. So Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. Moses has a better day, and the people receive equity and justice in a timely manner and get back to their families sooner. Yes, peace reigns in the land. And Moses chose able men. There he is. Enoshi. Able men who out of all Israel, and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, rulers of 10s. I never thought about working it out until this class. How many men was that? And they judged the people at all times. And the hard cases they brought to Moses. But they judged every small case themselves. And Moses let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. He had to live nearby. I told you before, Moses was keeping his sheep when that sheep wandered up to the top of Sinai. We are in the wilderness of Sinai right now. Not Rephidim. The men are in the wilderness of Sinai. We're going to see it right here. That's why I say the chapters can be switched a bit. It says in the third month, after Israel's seed had gone out of Egypt, on the same day they came to the wilderness of Sinai. These are just the Ezra men who have come to the wilderness of Sinai with Moses. Yasher says, so Israel's seed proceeded from Rephidim. This is where all the ladies are staying. This is where all the servants and the mixed heads of families are staying, with their children and their families, their wives. Proceeded from Rephidim and encamped in the wilderness of Sinai on the 3rd month from their going from Egypt. For they had departed from Rephidim, had come to the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness. So Israel camped there before the mountain. You know, if you read this as the children of Israel, now you've got all the children of Israel moving to the wilderness, don't you? But look what it said here. All the congregation of Israel's seed set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sin. This is where we received the manna and came to Rephidim. Got to understand how it all fits together. For they had departed from Rephidim, had come to the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness. So Israel camped before the mountain. It may be that the people that are camping here are comprised only of Israel's seed. Yeah, they are. The Ezra men. This is who we're talking about. Oh, we're going to see it. It's going to be even more clear in the next chapter. You think, oh, Michael, come on, you're stretching. No, I'm not. Wait till you see the next chapter. He's talking to the Ezra men when he says, you shall keep the Sabbath, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your maidservant and your ger who dwells with you, who dwells in your gates. Talking to the Ezra men. He's not talking to anybody else. Not talking to the ladies. We're going to see that in this chapter. Well, look what happens now. This is interesting. We're going to see this happen 3 or 4 times before we actually get commandments from Yehovah. And Moses went up to the Elohim. He's going up to the mountain, leaving Israel's seed behind. And Yehovah called to him from the mountain, saying, thus you shall say to Jacob's house, and tell Israel's seed. I made Israel's seed purple this time so that you can see it. It was yellow. Moses goes up to the Elohim on the mountain. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Remember, he told them, you shall serve the Elohim on the mountain. Here's the sign. This is the sign. You will serve the Elohim on the mountain. They are now. Bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Thus you shall say to Israel's seed. This is what he's saying. This is the things Moses is going to say to Israel's seed. Here is Revelation. I think it's interesting because he talks about eagle's wings. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half times. 3.5 years from the presence of the serpent. Then 19:4 is the one we just read. Eagle's wings. The covering Yehovah has given them. I think it has to do with the banner. The pillar of fire and smoke that's protecting the people, giving them light at night, sheltering them from the day. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice, keep my covenant. Who's he talking to? then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people. For all the earth is mine. You, Israel's seed, shall be to me a special treasure. That's the word segula. I love this word. It's something that Yehovah never lets out of his sight. The primary meaning of this word is its designation as a unique possession. Yehovah has made Israel his own unique possession. My son, my firstborn is Israel. Israel holds a special position among the peoples of the world, the men of the world. Although all who dwell in it belong to Yehovah, the earth is Yehovah and all those who dwell in it. What does he say? And you, Israel's seed, shall be to me a kingdom of priests. There are no lady priests in Yehovah's kingdom, and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to who? To Israel's seed, his Ezra men. You know, I talked about this before, and I want you to remember this. In Leviticus 23, at the end, it's very clear that we're talking about Israel's seed being the Ezra men, the native-born men. Look at what it says here. This is verse Leviticus 23, 42 and 43. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. Who's he speaking to? Israel's seed. All who are native-born, all who are Ezra, shall dwell in booths, that your generation may know that I made Israel's seed, the Ezra men, dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. There it is. I am Yehovah, Ani Yehovah, thy Elohim. Israel's seed are the native-born Israelites, the Ezra men, Ezra Israel. They're the ones that dwell in the tent, not the ger. Because he wants us to know whose tents we were in the wilderness. Israel's seed tents, Israel's tents. That's why we had to get the manna for all those who are in our tent. Just like we're now going to get the words of Elohim for all those who are in our tents as well. We're going to teach them to the ger. The ger are going to eventually become the Ezra. Wow, so much to see. Let's continue. So Moses came and called for the elders of the people. Here we are, Israel's elders again, and laid before them all these words which Yehovah had commanded. Oh, Moses came. So Moses came. He's down from the mountain. Came back down, didn't he? He was up, now he's back down. Came and called all the elders of the people, laid before them all the words of Yehovah. Now he's going back up. Then the people answered together and said, all that Yehovah has spoken we will do. So Moses brought back the words of the people to Yehovah. He went down, got the words, brought them back up to Yehovah. Now he's back up in the mountain again. Second time. This is not when he's going up for 40 days. There's going to be a time that he's going to go up for 40 days. It's not going to be for a while yet. Okay. And Yehovah said to Moses, behold, I come to you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. That the people may hear when I speak to you and believe you forever. So Moses told the words of the people to Yehovah. What they said, all that you said we will do. Then Yehovah said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow and let them wash their clothes. When we're unclean, we wash our clothes and remain unclean until evening. He's given us 2 days to do it. And let them be ready for the third day. So now the question is it starting on the third day and it's going to be the 6th day? Is he talking to him on the third day? Or is he talking to him on the first day? Yasher says he's talking to him on the third day. It appears to me that he's talking to Moses and Israel's seed, or through Moses to Israel's seed, on the new moon. That would almost make more sense. Then Yehovah said to Moses, go to the people, consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes, and let them be ready on the third day, for on the third day Yehovah will come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people, all of Israel's seed. The ladies aren't there. You shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, take heed to yourselves that you do not go up to the mountain or touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. There must be a flat area before Mount Sinai. That's not Rephidim. A place that's big enough for 600,000 men. Remember, they had probably in their group a couple million, which is pretty close to 600,000 3 times, isn't it? Maybe they had more than a couple million. Not a hand shall touch him. Oh, this is whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. How is he going to be put to death? He says, not a hand shall touch him. Can't touch him because he's going to be unclean, apparently. It says, not a hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot. Whether man, whether ish, or beast, there are no ladies there. He's not giving the ladies permission to touch the mountain. They're not even there. Whether man, ish, or beast, behemah, he shall not live. When the trumpet sounds long, they shall come near the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain. Here he is, going back down. This is the second time he's come down the mountain to the people. And he sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes. Look what it says. So interesting. And he said to the people, be ready for the third day. Do not come near your wives. That's what it says in my New King James. What it actually says is this: do not come near a woman. Do not come near a woman. What does that tell us? It tells us these people are all men, Israel's seed. Am I making this up? Look. Here's Bible in basic English. Do not come near a woman. Contemporary Jewish Bible. Don't approach a woman. Here's the EB. I forget what EB is. What is EB? The Emphasized Bible. Be ready on the third day. Do not approach a woman. And the ESV. What's the ESV? English Standard Version. Thank you, Carissa. Do not go near a woman. Why, look, there's 10. In all these translations that I have here, there's actually 14 altogether that say, do not go near a woman. These aren't women. These are men. And these are not just men. These are Ezra men, Israel's seed. Then it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there was thundering and lightning and a thick cloud on the mountain. And the sound of the trumpet was very loud, so that the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with the Elohim. And they stood at the foot of the mountain. You know, I wanted to talk, and I'm backtracking a little bit. I might just repeat myself here that last little bit. Let me read my other note here. It says, and when a woman lies with a man, and there is an emission of semen, they shall bathe in water and be unclean until evening. If a woman has a discharge, and the discharge is from her body is blood, she shall be set apart 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. This is the concern that we're having. We have to be clean when we come before Yehovah. We wash our clothes and we're unclean until evening. We got 2 days to do it. That means when Zipporah showed up at the mountain with Moses and Israel's seed, with Raul, he had to get rid of her. He had to have one of those days so that he could get clean, wash his clothes, and be unclean. Was she in her menses? He just said, don't go near a woman. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. We assume everybody's unclean. Every woman's unclean. Don't go near a woman. Everything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything that she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Oh, all right, let me continue. Then it came to pass on the 3rd day in the morning, there was thundering and lightning and a thick cloud on the mountain. And the sound of the trumpet was very loud, so that the people who were in the camp trembled. Oh my gosh, what's going on? The earth is shaking! You know, I wonder if the whole earth shook, or was it just this particular spot that shook? Wouldn't that be interesting to know? And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet with the Elohim, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Now, Mount Sinai was completely in smoke. This is how it always is. Yehovah shows up in the smoke, in the clouds, and in the fire. That's how it's going to be in the last days. It's not Jesus who's coming back in a cloud. It's Yehovah who's coming back in a cloud. But because we build our theology based on New Testament ideas, we get so confused. Now Mount Sinai was completely in smoke because Yehovah descended upon it in fire. Its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. And when the blast of the trumpet sounded long and became louder and louder, Moses spoke, and Elohim answered him by voice. Oh my goodness. Here is our leader, Moses, speaking, and Yehovah answers him with voice. This is before all Israel. Can you imagine? Now Moses is going up for the 3rd time. Then Yehovah came down upon Sinai on top of the mountain, and Yehovah called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Here he goes again. And Yehovah said to Moses, go down, go up, go down, go up, go down. Warn the people, lest they break through and gaze at Yehovah, and many of them perish. What does he say? They break through. They break through. This is 3rd person, they, masculine, plural. But he said, you cannot see my face, for no man shall see me and live. That is Exodus 33. Reiterating it again for Moses. Verse 22. Also let the priests, who are the priests? Do we have priests? We don't have any that are consecrated priests yet. But here it says, let all the priests who came near Yehovah consecrate themselves, lest Yehovah break out against them. Who are our priests? And I thought, oh, maybe we do have priests. Look at this. This is same word, kohen, same word that it was talking about, but this is kohanim. It's more, it's plural. The kohanim, the priests is what it says, the priests, plural. I said, where did the priests come from? It occurred to me, maybe this is where the priests came from. It says, at that time, this is Yasher 36:5. This is when Reuben slept with Bilhah, Abraham's concubine. After Rachel died, instead of Leah, he was angry. At that time, the portion of the birthright, together with the kingly and priestly offices, this is the Melchizedek blessing, was removed from the sons of Reuben. They should have stayed with the sons of Reuben, but they didn't. Removed from the sons of Reuben, Reuben's seed. For he had profaned his father's bed, and the birthright was given unto Joseph. The double blessing. I think that's why the two boys came into Israel. Got adopted. The priesthood unto Levi. Remember, it was a kingly and priestly offices. The birthright, together with the kingly and priestly offices, were removed from Reuben's seed. And it says, the priesthood unto Levi. No, actually it says, and the birthright was given to Joseph, the kingly office to Judah, and the priesthood unto Levi, because Reuben had defiled his father's bed. Maybe there was priests. Remember, in Egypt, it was the Levites who did not work for Pharaoh. Is it possible that they knew more because they were the priests, that they were setting the examples of not working for Pharaoh? Wow. There's more going on here than we ever imagined, I think. When do we stop seeing new things in his words? I don't think it will ever happen. I think we're going to continue to see new things. This is the second time that I've taught this. I mean, I've read the Torah so many times, studied it so many times, but every week I find new things. Things that I haven't seen, things that I haven't thought of before. Also let the priests who come near Yehovah consecrate themselves, lest Yehovah break out against them. How are the priests coming near to Yehovah? What exactly is happening? He's going to say something just the opposite of that here in just a second. Watch. But Moses said to Yehovah, the people cannot come to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, set bounds around the mountain and consecrate it. So he's talking about the priests coming before him. But remember, there were 50 elders at one point that seemed to meet with Yehovah. I'm not sure where that is right offhand. We're going to have to find that. I think we're going to come across that later. What's going on with that, I wonder? But Moses said to the people, but Moses said to Yehovah, the people cannot come to Mount Sinai, for you warned us, saying, set bounds around the mountain and consecrate it. Then Yehovah said to him, away, get down, and then come up, you and Aaron with you. Go down, go up, go down, go up. So he's going down now. Only he says, go down and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through and come to Yehovah, lest he break out against them. Well, that's weird. He just said, let the priests. This is clearly priests, 22. Oh, well, actually, let's make sure it is. Priests, yeah, the priests. It's plural. I thought, well, maybe it's Aaron, because Aaron's coming with him. And the priests are going to be who? Aaron's seed. but do not let the priests come near. Let the priests come near and consecrate themselves, lest Yehovah break out against them. But now he says, get down, then come up, you and Aaron with you, but do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yehovah, lest he break out against them. Well, the priests are the people. All the priests are people, but not all the people are priests. All the people are Israel. All the priests are Israel, but not all Israel are priests. We can say it like that. So Moses went down to the people and spoke to them. Back and forth, Yehovah is using Moses to bring messages to Israel's seed. He's still doing it. That was the third time that he's come down. He's going to go up one more time. Well, this is the beginning of the Ten Commandments. We're not going to cover it today. Instead, I want to go here to Yasher. We were reading in Yasher 81, and it said that we were supposed to read Exodus 18 and 19. So, before we leave, I want to cover this short portion. It's just a few verses, really, before we start Exodus 20. And this is probably good based on the time that we have here today. And then we'll call it quits for the day. It's going to be a little bit shorter day. And Israel's seed proceeded from Rephidim. They encamped in the wilderness of Sinai in the 3rd month from their going down from Egypt. They were where? In Rephidim. And they encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. Who's they? Israel's seed is who we're talking about. In the 3rd month from their going down from Egypt, going forth from Egypt. At that time came Reuel the Midianite. Look at, this is now when Reuel is coming. We have moved, Israel's seed has moved from Rephidim, where we're going to be our base camp for the next year, where the rock of Horeb is going to give us water for ourselves and our flocks for the next year. We moved from there, Israel's seed did, not the congregation of Israel's seed's congregation, meaning Israel's seed and the Ger, and all the people who are with them, of course, they're included. But he's always talking about men. He's dealing with men. At that time came Reuel the Midianite, the father-in-law of Moses, with Zipporah his daughter and her 2 sons, for of Yehovah which he had done to Israel, that he delivered them from the hand of Egypt. And Reuel came to Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped, where was the Elohim's mountain. And Moses went forth to meet his father-in-law with great honor, and all Israel was with him. All Israel was with him. We can't see this because we think women people, don't we? Reuel and his sons remained amongst the Israelites for many days. Reuel and his sons remained among the Israelites. What happened to Zipporah? I'm guessing she was escorted down the mountain to base camp, Rephidim, with the rest of the ladies. It says, and Reuel knew Yehovah from that day forward. Did he not know Yehovah before that day? After all, he was the priest, Midian's priest. Or was he Midian's prince? And in the 3rd month from Israel's seed's departure from Egypt on the 6th day. So here's the 3rd month, 6th day. Okay, that kind of clears it up, doesn't it? Therefore, thereof, Yehovah gave to Israel the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. So one version says that it was the third month, 3rd day. Exodus 19 says it was the 3rd month, 3rd day. And Yasher 82:6 says it was the 3rd month, 6th day. Therefore, thereof, Yehovah gave to Israel the 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. To Israel, he gave them to Israel, the men of Israel. And all Israel heard all these commandments, and all Israel rejoiced exceedingly in Yehovah on that day. And the glory of Yehovah rested upon Mount Sinai. Look, they're not seem to be scared in this coverage of this event. And the glory of Yehovah rested on Mount Sinai. And he called to Moses, and Moses came in the midst of the cloud and ascended the mountain. Well, you know what? When he ascends the mountain, after the 10 commandments are given, who was supposed to go with him?
Joshua.
Was it Joshua?
Oh, sorry. I think so.
Didn't he say Aaron? It does seem like Joshua went with him, doesn't it? Well, now you got me confused.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, this is good. Because I think it was Joshua that went with him. Or Caleb. Joshua. No, I think it was Joshua. Let's go back. What did he say? Didn't he say that Aaron should go with him? These are things we always got to just watch. Yeah. Get down and then come up. You and Aaron with you. But Aaron didn't come with them, did he? Remember, Aaron was the one who made the golden calf. What's up with that? Well, now I'm curious. Let's watch for that for next week, huh? And weeks to come. He told Aaron to come up. That's what it says in Torah. In Yasher, it doesn't appear that he told anybody to come up with him. And the glory of Yehovah rested on Mount Sinai, and he called Moses, and Moses came to the midst of the cloud and ascended the mountain. Oh, so much to learn. You know, you can learn these things and you can forget them just as easily. It's, for me, I have to look at them and look at them and look at them. Moses has been up. Moses has been up and down at least 3 times before he goes up for 40 days. Actually, at least 3 times. Maybe it was 4 times. I lost count now. I think it was 3 times. This is now he's going up for the 4th time. All right, well, let's stop here. Next week, we're going to get the 10 Commandments. Oh, my goodness, you guys. We have much to understand. Who were the 10 Commandments given to? Any Egyptians? Was there a single Egyptian among Israel's seed there at the mountain? Were there ladies? This is why it's so important that we become Ezra men. We've got to find and obtain that second birth. And that happens at Passover. He is going to talk to thee. Here, look at this. This is the first time. The second person masculine singular. Thou brought thee. I am Yehovah, thy Elohim. Each one of your Elohims who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou, you, individual man shall have no other Elohims. He's going to talk to his Ezra men, not the ladies. Don't come near a woman for 3 days. Not going to talk to the Ger. There's no Ger there. Only Israel's seed is there. He says, Yehovah, your Elohim. He is the Elohim of Israel. Code words that we've got to learn. Yehovah, your Elohim, is the same way as saying Israel's seed. Still talking about exactly the same group of men. But we can't see it if we haven't learned to decode it. Well, it's 1:36, and I really hate to stop this early, but I really want to have the Ten Commandments be done next week. This whole chapter I really want to do next week. So I'm going to stop here today. Thank you for joining me. Please come back. Love having you join us. I hope this is helpful to you. These are things that we've got to learn to understand. Please consider joining me again. Love you tons. Bye now.